Yes, Kyle.
Let me hit that.
Oh, of course. Boom. Hold on. No. Woo!
Isn't that authentic though,
like
man?
that.
That's
Straight
good.
from Tibet.
Straight from Tibet.
Hey!
Many monks worshipped with that. No, that's fake news. But no. So Kyle Depiesse, how you doing?
Depiesse.
Good morning.
Depiesse, yes.
Welcome.
How are you? Yeah.
Super excited to have Kyle Depiesse on the show today.
Excited to be here.
He has such an amazing story that, I mean, when you just see the post that we shared to kind of get people excited, get our listeners excited, it just is mind-blowing. So, Kyle, give us just a real quick intro on yourself, and then we'll dive into your story.
Yeah, okay. So I'm from southeast Wisconsin, a small town called Random Lake. We do not have stoplights in said town. So small town, born and raised. Went to UW Green Bay, and my major is in business, emphasis in finance.
And we don't hold any of that against you.
Thank you.
None of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I saw a lot of Vikings apparel when I walked in.
It got a little nervous, the heart beating.
Am I in the wrong place here? And so moved to Minneapolis in 2005. My wife is from Grand Forks, North Dakota. She's a CPA. Went to University of North Dakota, and we married in January of 2013, and we have one son, Callahan, or Cal for short, and he just turned 2.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Fascinating,
Yeah,
fascinating,
cool.
fascinating. So let's dive right into this.
I'd love to.
Kyle and
Skip
his
right over
wife.
Minnesota to find your wife, though. I mean, couldn't.
Well, let's revert back to Green Bay. How about the turmoil going on there with the Packers? And you see with A-Rod and McCarthy.
No comment.
Oh, my gosh.
No comment.
It's delicious. We love it here,
Yeah.
being Minnesota fans.
Yeah, we didn't make the playoffs either. So.
But oh, my God. That's frustrating. How, first of all, why did you want to pay off $379,504?
Yeah, there's two really important things to talk about with that. Number one, and I might have told you this already, Troy, you can go on to socialsecurity.gov, and you can look up your lifetime earnings. All you have to do is create a profile, obviously use your social security number, and boom, it pops out this report, and it shows you your life-to-date earnings. And so I did that in between Christmas and New Year's 2015, and what I saw made me sick to my stomach.
Sure.
And at that point, I was, 35? So working professional for 13 years, plus some high school, college stuff. But so I looked, and I had made just over $1 million during that time frame, and I had looked at all of our investments and all of our, I follow kind of net worth, so assets minus liabilities.
Yeah.
And we had a massive negative net worth number. And I looked at my wife and I said, Lois, where did it all go?
Right.
What happened to it? And I just got sick. And then to make it worse, I looked up hers. And she was right around the same thing. So we were looking at making almost $2 million, and we had nothing to show for it. And it might sound like a lot, but the average person is going to make that in no time. If you're making $50,000 a year, you do that for 20 years, you're $1 million.
Wow.
So it adds up really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at that. We said, what we're doing is not working. And if we want change, we have to do something different. And so we got really frustrated, probably angry about our situation. And
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Why did you decide to look at socialsecurity.gov? What was it?
I don't know. I think I might have heard it from someone at some point that you could do that. I have this little habit of in between Christmas and New Year's, I kind of recap the year. And I look at what were the goals for that year. Did we hit them? And then I set goals for the next year, along with a 10-year kind of a moving 10-year moving vision and plan. And I think at some point I was just curious. I might have heard it from someone. I don't really know. But a part of that little recap at the end of the year is to recap financially where do we stand as a family. And I don't really know.
So you didn't necessarily have a burning desire at that point, but doing that created that burning desire?
That was the pivotal moment, and that was probably it.
Well, you did touch on one thing that is important, because you had said, where does that money go? And like I said, $50,000, $20,000, doesn't matter what you make. Mm-hmm. One of the human laws, or this is a Keller Williams Bold law, but whatever you're doing, substance fills the time allowed.
Yeah.
And so if you have X amount of things that you enjoy doing and want to spend dollars on, whatever you have, you're going to fill that up because your desire level oftentimes exceed your finance level, regardless what level that is. And so it's just a matter of where you want to draw that line. And most people will fill what they have to the time, it'll expand to the time allotted. And that's what you say. You look back, and unless you're conscientious and we talk about that with numbers in a sales setting, same exact thing. If you're not looking at it, where does it go?
Yeah. I think it's one word, is intentionality. And that was what was missing, I think, in at least as it relates to our finance. We were not intentional. Like you said, money comes in, money goes right out. And we'll get to it probably later, but living below your means is so important. I can give some examples on how we did that. But that was thing number one. I said there was two. So thing number one was looking at our lifetime earnings and just getting really frustrated and angry with that. Thing number two, my wife was in a commission job. And I know my wife really well. She's a really hard, like you guys, she's a really hard worker. And things were starting to come together in her role. I think she was in her role maybe a year or two at that point. And I knew that her income was about to go up. And I had said, and I think it's important to share that we are people of faith. And we knew that if we couldn't handle the money we were making, why would we be allowed to make any more?
Amen.
And so it just was this point where, man, if we can't take care of what we make right now, why would we be given double that or triple, whatever the number might be? We didn't know at that point. And so that was really important. We had to clean up our financial house, so to speak, because we believed that in the future we would be making more money.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is so true. And that's something Dave does talk about. And is something I've even talked about that helps me understand finance and wealth. And for people that maybe did not grow up with money, that exposure to money, psychologically, oftentimes you get pushback on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you find ways to stay in debt or at the level you're at. And if you look at finance from a religious standpoint or from a spiritual standpoint, that money is given to you. Yeah. Not given to you, but borrowed to you so that you can do whatever with it. Exactly. And you don't ever own it, and it's transferred, and it can come and go.
Right. And, absolutely. So those are the two things. And you say why, that would be it.
Awesome. Cool. And do you think your income came up because you got your financial house in order?
A good question. We believe that it did. Yeah, we believe that. We were given more because we showed the ability that we can handle it. I think that's really important.
Murphy moved out.
Murphy did move out.
Yeah, from Murphy's Law. When you're not quite there, he always seems that what can go wrong will go wrong. Yep. When you get your stuff all in order, he decides that he'll go bug someone that's not paying as close of attention.
Amen. Yeah.
Awesome. So Kyle, now let's dive into how you did it.
Sure. It sounds so cliche because everyone talks about it, Dave Ramsey. So we follow Dave Ramsey's plan. And living below your means, I think, is so important. And everyone will say it, but how did it? I think the question, and maybe to illuminate how we did it, are some examples. So, you hear Dave Ramsey talk about a house payment should be less than 25% of your take-home pay. When we started this plan, it was around 10 to 12%. And why is that important? Well, it just frees up extra money to put towards debt. Number two, another example would be our car payments. So when we started, we had a car payment on one Ford Explorer, and we quickly knocked that out. So Dave would say his personal finance principle is that the value of all vehicles, anything with a motor in it, should be no more than 50% of your annual income. Well, as it stands today, it's about 5% for us, and when we started, it was closer to 10%. So that's how we would live out living below your means. Also didn't take any vacations during that time. We were just really, obviously a budget is really important. Dave Ramsey talks about a budget all the time.
How did you find Dave Ramsey?
Oddly enough, years back, I had read his book, and I read it, I put it down, and I said, that's nice. That's cool.
Now I'm going to go back to going out to dinner with my wife.
Yeah. Well, we were in San Diego on vacation.
Sure.
So,
oh, no.
And then it came back because then I was a teacher, and I was teaching personal finance. And when looking at the curriculum, I just, integrity-wise, I didn't agree with what we were teaching our kids. I didn't agree that we should teach them about debt and going into debt and building a credit score. And to me, it wasn't. I didn't really like it. So I looked for other ways, and obviously Dave Ramsey has a personal finance curriculum. So I wrote an essay, got a grant, and got it paid for and brought it into the school, and I taught it. And
Good for you.
some kids really...
You actually taught the Dave Ramsey program
the
in school?
foundations. Yeah.
Good for you. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
That's phenomenal.
It's a great curriculum.
And what I think is powerful is you're saying what we were teaching I didn't believe in. My generation, we were taught, get into debt, so you can improve
It's
your
every
credit score.
generation.
So that you can get your house, and it's they're looking at you just so condescendingly.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation about that yesterday, weren't we, Dan?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so how many credit? So, well, don't ever pay it off. You need to keep a balance on it. And it's like, and so you're thinking, well,
That's a myth, too.
exactly, it's wrong. Don't do that. I'm sorry. Yes, if that was not clear, that is a myth.
Yeah.
And so if these people are thinking they're just winning, and they're on the treadmill, but they're not winning. You know what I mean? And that's so insightful.
On the hamster wheel. That's
Exactly.
pretty much it.
Yeah,
So vacations, car payment, house. How about eating out? Did you guys eat out much?
Not a lot. So my wife has some food allergies and sensitivities. So maybe a blessing and a curse. We eat a lot at home with gluten and dairy free and corn and soy and things like that. So it's just easier for us to eat at home. And she's a wonderful cook. So we don't eat out a lot.
Nice.
And we even, with our son. So our son was born in the middle of this process. And I think when you have kids, you just sometimes are tied to home. You're tied to the schedule and things like that. So no, we didn't eat out a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that is the biggest problem for my wife and I is going out to eat. And that's what I find out is a very consistent thing for most people is you have the kids, you're always at home, you're working, you need to do something.
Yeah.
Maybe going out to dinner is the one way to change up your day.
And it's easy.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so
to
hard.
make food at home all the time takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but you definitely sacrificed on the vacations, the homes, and as you're going through this journey, was it hard at first? Did it get easier?
Yeah. I think the hardest part was starting. And John Maxwell talks about everything worth having is uphill. Life is uphill. And it's a metaphor too, because I trained for an Ironman during this process. And when I would start my run, literally outside of the driveway of our house is a hill going up. And so, it was a metaphor for this process too,
That's
because
awesome.
when you immediately start something, it feels uphill because it's new, it's not a habit, and it's really difficult. And that every single run that I took out of my house, the first 100, 200, 300 yards, I'm like, maybe I'll just go back. Forget it. I'll do it another day.
That's
it was
interesting.
always a struggle
That's
when
awesome.
I started. And once you get past that hump, you get some momentum. Dave Ramsey has a snowball that just facilitates and creates more momentum. And so, I think just starting is it. Because you look at the amount that we paid off, it was a big number.
$380,000, folks.
When we were looking at it, it's like, that was a multiple of our income. And so it just, you look at it and you're like, wow, you know where to start. I don't even know what to do. It takes your breath away when you have that much that you're looking
That's
at.
why nobody does it. I mean, you're in the half a percentile.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really cool, and what I always think is cool throughout life is noticing those types of examples. And I don't know where you live, but I assume on your hill, if you go one way, it's uphill. If you go one way, it's downhill.
I like that.
And you know what you told me is every day you chose to go the uphill route, not downhill. You could have just gone the other way and started your run every day downhill is kind of how I interpreted that. And to me, that's the bigger piece. If you can, and this is a teachable, learnable thing for anybody that wants to get there, if you can get your mindset into a place where you walk out of the driveway, you see a downhill route, you see an uphill route, and you choose the uphill route almost without thinking.
It's good training. Yeah.
That's the first step. And then all the other steps are just putting one foot in front of the other because you've already done the mental work, which is the real difficult part.
It's making the choice. That
is something you should be proud of as far as a character point and all those things, because that is something that that's probably what gave you the fuel to do whichever, and will continue to do so.
Builds habits. Builds.
Well, Dave Ramsey has the picture of the book he wrote, The Legacy Journey. The beautiful thing about going up the hill is when you get up, you get to go down. And that's
Isn't
when...
it called the Pinnacle Point? Isn't it called the Pinnacle Point?
It very well could be.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't that the name of where we're
Tie it all in. Full circle right here.
I guess we're done now. That was good
like
talk.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
No.
Yeah, I mean, You're a financial advisor now as well, right? So tell us a little bit about that. First of all, how can people reach you?
I think I'm pretty active on social media as much as I can be. Being a financial advisor, there is some regulation oversight. But on social media, Kyle Depiesse on Facebook and also.
You gotta definitely spell your name out for our listeners.
And it's on here. Just so you know,
cool.
We'll see that as well.
Okay. So how did I get to that point? So I've got, like I mentioned, I went to Green Bay. I've got a finance degree. So I've always been a numbers nerd. I really enjoy it. Probably too much. I mean, I've got spreadsheets for our budget that link to other spreadsheets that have graphs, projection, all that nerdy stuff. So I love that. I'm very analytical. And going through this process of the Baby Steps, Dave Ramsey's program, I realized that I think I have some talents and some gifts in this area, and I think I can help other people through this process as well. Cool. And I kind of moved from a career. I had a career in just various different industries with Sarah at Kokum doing some e-commerce stuff, and that was a career for me. But I truly believe this is a calling for me because I think I have the strengths in this area. And now I've got the experience to sit down and say with someone, hey, I know what you're going through. We've been through the struggle as well.
Amen. That's right.
And so I truly believe I can walk with people through this process. And so during all this as well, so I'm a stay-at-home dad currently, and that's one of the hats I wear. And so when Cal would sleep, I would study. And so I got my health insurance test, or my license, my life insurance, my Series 7, and now I'm going through the Series 66. So I believe going through this process helped me understand and uncover that this truly is a calling for me. And so that's why I chose it, and I love it.
It's like going with the trainer. Do you want the overweight trainer or the trainer that's buff, and ripped?
And he's like, I've read all the books. Yeah. You're like, okay, but, I'd like,
There's theory and there's application. And
sure.
I think that, you have to have theory, you have to understand it, but you have to apply it
Application's everything, right?
Yeah. Head knowledge, heart knowledge, kind of the same concept. So, it's something that I'm so passionate about that I could not do this.
Do you help people with budgets too that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important. That was one of the things where, like you had said, if you don't know where your money's going, it's really hard to have any sort of plan or goal or be intentional.
And I'd imagine a lot of financial planners out there may only say you need to invest in this stock, but they don't care what you're doing with your money and with your budget.
Yeah, I'd like to take a comprehensive approach. And being a former teacher, I don't know if you want to call it specialty, but my calling, so to speak, in terms of how I do what I do and practice my craft is I'm a teacher. And so I'm going to educate someone on whatever it might be, whether it's picking mutual funds in their 401ks or whether it's, setting up a budget and things like that. That's just where I think I excel. I'm
holistic,
at heart.
Comprehensive.
Yep.
No doubt. So tell us something nobody knows about you, Kyle. First of all, spell your name for those people that are listening.
Yeah, Depiesse. It's French.
Awesome.
And it was
Depiesse.
actually, Depiesse. So, maybe. So I mentioned, I think probably is that I had a couple years back, I had my solo pilot's endorsement. So we live right next to the Eden Prairie Airport. And it was always a passion of mine to fly or learn how to fly. I loved it. I almost went to UW-Madison on the Air Force ROTC program.
Nice.
Really impacted by Top Gun. I thought that movie was just the
best movie ever.
Troy's favorite movie.
We gotta do this.
Yeah.
That was
too
perfect.
So
that's funny. They just had it like, oh yeah, the guy. Yeah.
How did I get my elbow to go down?
I know, that was tough.
Hard.
That was pretty good.
That movie just was a huge impact. I loved it.
Isn't that still a transcendent movie? You can watch it now. Yeah. Like my kid could watch it.
Yeah.
And be like, this happened this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like crotch rockets and jet planes.
And where's Top Gun 2?
Beach volleyball.
When is it coming out? Isn't there
I thought it was. Which is going to be terrible, I'm sure.
Well, Tom Cruise hasn't aged since that movie.
True.
That's true.
Val Kilmer.
He might
nice man.
Yeah, he's aged a little bit.
Cunt.
Goose.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was the question?
Goose died, by the way. He's not coming back.
Yeah, did you see the movie? That was like a pretty big part, Kyle.
I was thinking the character, the character. Okay. I forgot your question.
Question. Something nobody knows about you, which is the
pilot.
pilot.
So tell us about the Max 8 planes and why those are not.
So I just went into and started going in Cessna 152s at the airport with a certified instructor, and I think after 8 or 9 hours maybe, I had the opportunity to take my first solo, which is ridiculous, by the way. I am not comfortable
I thought you'd had to have hundreds of hours.
Maybe it was 10. To get actually licensed is a lot more, but to do your solo.
When you do the solo, is there another pilot in there with you?
Well, so you take 3, you go up and down 3 times, go up and then do it again. So you stay in the pattern. And if you do those 3 with the instructor next to you well enough, he'll be like, okay, I'm going to jump out now, and you're going to do 3 on your own.
Cool.
Like, you got to be
10
kidding
hours.
me.
I thought for sure it'd be hundreds of hours.
I could probably go look at my logbook, but it's right around 10. And I was just thinking to myself, I am not ready for this.
But you did it?
Yeah.
Faced your fears?
Did it, yeah.
That's really cool. And that's got to be just adrenaline just sitting there the whole time.
A whole lot of feelings and emotions at that point. But yeah, so that's probably something that most people don't know about me. I had it. It's past tense. I'd have to go through the whole process again. They would never let me go in solo right now. No way.
Because you haven't. Oh yeah, of course. Just like very similar to skydiving. Mm-hmm. But you had a really cool post about transformation as a metaphor, kind of physically and more importantly mentally. Do you mind dipping your beak in that a little bit for us?
Yeah. So the whole process of the Ironman, a big physical transformation, lost a lot of weight, lost basically all the muscle, which is a whole nother story. Kind of depressing. But it was just a metaphor for the mental transformation that also had to happen, which no one really sees because that's under the surface. And I think I had posted once about what I physically looked like before the Ironman.
Yeah, you were like a bodybuilder.
After, and it is not the same. But the transformation happened underneath, and the transformation happened in my head. And it was just, it's the same thing. And Dan, you were just talking about the choices that you have to make. Every single time I would go out to train, I had to make those choices, and I didn't want to because my wife would come home from work. I would have to hand off Cal sometimes, and I'd go hit the road for a couple hours. Saturday mornings, 4:30, wake up, eat, hit the road at 5 to do a bike. And there's so many times where I didn't want to do it. But every time you make those decisions on a day-to-day basis, you build muscle internally, and you build habits. And I think that's a learning for anyone across any category of life. It isn't just training for an Ironman or physical or personal finance. It is any category.
You choose your difficult.
Yeah.
Which is another favorite slogan of yours. Did you coin that phrase?
I don't know where I got that from.
Okay.
But I was sitting down maybe 2 weekends ago with a former student, and I was telling her that you're going to have to choose. And she was someone who caught on to Dave Ramsey's curriculum going through school debt-free. She's really close to it. And I said, it'll be difficult for the next year because we planned out her next year and a half of finances, high level. And I said, it'll be tough. It'll be really difficult to get through it without going into student loan debt. However, I said, it'll be tough to pay off that student loan debt when you're done. Yeah. So you get to choose which one you want. And that's life. I mean, you don't get to choose easy.
God, I wish you were a teacher in every high school in America. Seriously. Wouldn't you'd be changing legacies and generations?
I loved it. I was on a different podcast through our church, and I said, when we had to make the decision to leave teaching, it was the hardest decision of my life. I loved teaching. I loved the community. I loved the school district. I loved the kids. I loved the parents. It was so hard. And, it was driving 65 miles one way to go to teach, and it was just way too difficult with a newborn at that time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think if a spot had opened up in Eden Prairie where I lived, where I could maybe do it part-time, I probably would have jumped on it.
Would you do it today if presented itself?
Because we have the superintendent. No.
I have my teaching license is active.
Okay.
And I will probably keep it active. But I don't know that I would do it right now. I honestly feel like I'm supposed to go down this path of helping folks with their finances. So I don't know. In the future, maybe. I mean, if there was a part-time spot that had opened up, Cal's in school, maybe. Maybe. So that's why I want to keep my license active.
Okay.
Well, and the one thing that I want to just even piggyback on, you said you choose your difficult. And as somebody who has also, I think, changed their lives personally, I changed my life path, years back. And the way that I envision that, or the way that I look at that is it's about fears. And you say choose your difficult. I guess I would just say choose your fear.
Yeah.
Because essentially actions work based on emotions. And are you scared of the sacrifice that you're taking? Well, then that's great.
Yeah.
Because then you can deal with this monster over here. It doesn't matter. You're going to deal with the monster. And you need to want it more than you fear it to accomplish it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Well, and each time you do it, that you push back fear a little bit, so it gets less fearful and less fearful and less fearful.
And that's what I got away when you were saying when I wake up and when I say it's hard and I do it anyways. What you're doing is you're weakening the beast, and the scare becomes so much less. And tomorrow you're more confident. You have the momentum. You have more strength. You are better at your craft, and just better to take down the demon. It's no longer scary over time, and it's
you take the power away from that. So that's important.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Next level, though. I know you want to get into finance. You are a financial planner now. You want to change families. Family trees, legacies. What is your goal above that? What is your legacy that you want to leave on the world?
I think the biggest impact that I can have is on my son. And if we're given another child, same thing. We have so much time just by the amount of time you spend with them, especially being home right now for the majority of the week. I have so much, the opportunity there to have an impact and influence on my son is huge.
No doubt. So what are you doing with him? He's only 2, right?
Yeah. Well, I was telling another podcast.
Chemistry.
Yeah, right. We do push-ups in the morning. And we
stretch.
No.
Cool.
So
I was like, he's like the little. I don't know if you saw way back. The
Hercules. Little Hercules.
Yeah.
No, he's not. But a lot of different stuff. So I mentioned once before, I take him to music class. And we try to do different things like that to expose him to different experiences because what brings him joy brings me joy. And the hardest part, I think, for a parent, I love sports, as as I mentioned, Wisconsin sports. And and golf. And so it would be selfishly, if he didn't like golf, I would kind of be crushed a little bit. It's like, man, I would love to do that with my son for decades to come.
True.
But if he doesn't like it, I have to be okay with that. And whatever he likes, whatever brings him joy and his passions, I need to be involved in that. So, I didn't really do Cub Scouts when I was younger, but if he wants to do it, I will do that with him because if that's what he likes, that's what I'll like. And so I think that'll be the part that will be challenging for me as a parent is just to foster and cultivate who he is and help him understand who he is early on, and then just go after that and just be his biggest supporter.
That's awesome. So how are we going to teach him about money? I know we're going to the Smart Money Conference here in May.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun to see you there and hang out.
Yeah, and you can come over. We're right down the street there from
no doubt.
church.
Appreciate it.
And so, I think there's a saying that I can't remember where it was from. I know Rachel Cruz says it, but more is caught than taught. And that was something that I also grabbed onto as a teacher because my students would see what I would do in my real life and I let them have access to that. So they all follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Doesn't matter to me. I'm the same person. I don't hide anything. And so with my son, more will be caught than taught. So I try and show him what I model a behavior that I want from him, not as opposed to Cal, why don't you do this? He's too young right now.
Of course.
But, I think him watching me, and so as it relates to money, as Dave, we have that book at home. Is it Smart Money, Smart Kids? Yeah, Smart Money, Smart Kids. So when the time's appropriate, because he's a little bit young for it, I'll just educate myself on what are the best ways to do that. I don't really know yet because we're not there, but I'd imagine when we go buy things, pay with cash. I'd imagine showing him that he's got to save up money. If he wants something, he's paying for it, or he's paying for part of it. And I think that's really important.
You break the toy, you don't just go get the new one and say no big deal. Accidents happen. You say, well, we got to take care of our stuff, and this is how it works.
And I love the idea of commissions. I mean, earning the money. You're not just given the money. So I really think that's such an important mindset at a young age.
Absolutely. There are some things they have to do, and they don't get paid for it, right?
Yes. Yeah, and that's important too.
Yeah. Well, this is something I'm doing. I'm taking my kids door to door. And I might get in trouble from the state of Minnesota. Who knows? But I am paying them too for every lead we get going door to door. Cool. So I'm just fascinated to see where this goes. See how much money they earn. I mean, just last night, Ty, my 5-year-old, was like, "Dad, when do we get to go selling again?"
Oh yeah.
because we'll pay him $25, and then if he wants to go spend some of it at the Dave and Buster's, we'll go there. I mean,
that's cool.
It's amazing.
Teaching values.
But that's it. That's caught. That he's catching that from you, as opposed to you telling him that he should be doing that stuff. So that's so important.
I'm gonna use that. More is caught than taught.
Yeah.
I can't say Kyle Depiesse came up with it. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't come up with it.
Well, you can give.
I have no idea.
We're just throwing it out there.
Trademark.
Yeah. But no, we were actually just talking about that yesterday. And I said, in my experience in insurance, the reason I am able to move at the level I'm able to move at is because of what I've seen and because what I've been able to just take on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real substance. The clicking the buttons, the understanding, that is taught, but that doesn't separate me from the next guy.
Yeah.
What separates me is what I was able to pick up on and then project in the way that I perceived it. Yeah. And it is
good.
Powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So people just can Google your name, Kyle Depiesse, to find more information on you.
Yeah, I would say Facebook, Instagram is probably the easiest way.
Do you offer tips and hints throughout the day, the weeks, and months?
I kind of focus that a lot on personal growth and leadership, and that's another area I'm really passionate about. Is personal, and so I went through the process of being John Maxwell certified as a speaker trainer coach.
True.
So I've done that as well, and I love it because, if I go back probably 5-6 years ago, where my life started to take a different direction, is when I poured myself into self-development and growth, reading books. I mean, I didn't read books until.
What's the last book you read?
All licensed exam manuals for all of my stuff. So
that's so boring.
But I know, but it had to be
pick that one up tonight. Right?
It's like this.
Is that on Audible
too? Right. But the last one prior to that is Chris Hogan's new one, The Everyday Millionaire.
Everyday Millionaire.
It's good.
I think we have it maybe right there.
This one.
That
No, I don't think that's
is that
it, but
Dave
it's right
Ramsey?
You see Dave Ramsey's name on it.
Yeah, we did
That's
have
the
Everyday
total
Millionaire in there too.
And the one thing that I just wanted to then kind of recap, Kyle, what I got from this is what you were able to do is, first of all, identify a problem, which came from, some of that background, that mindset that you already had in place.
Yep.
Then understand, and then the communication, with the wife and saying, okay, here's the problem. Do we agree that there's problem? What do we want to look at, and how do we want things to go?
Yep.
And then you basically set a budget. And then your sacrifice was looking at percentages and saying, how do we make whatever we're bringing in, doesn't matter what you're earning, it matters what you're spending.
Yep.
So what we're spending on our living situation, what we're spending on our transportation situation, whether it's your Ubering and you're buying a car, whatever your situation is, the bus pass, doesn't matter. How much are you spending? What percentage of our income does this equate to? And then finding a way is really where the work comes in, as to find those solutions and to say,
and then implementing.
And then you're right, and then that's of course the most of it is making it happen. But am I accurate to say that was kind of the process?
Totally. I mean, if you look high level, that's essentially it. You break it down.
And anyone can do that. You just have to identify the problem, communicate with whoever might be in your corner to help solve it, and identify that. Then look at your percentages as to what you're spending versus what you're bringing in, and then, like Troy says, it's about discipline. At that point, it's just about staying consistent and sure what you're doing.
And the trap is you should compare your percentages. You should not compare the high level numbers, because that's where you get into the comparison game, and that's just it's a trap.
Right.
But so look at your percentages.
The 20-year-old can't compare themselves to the 60-year-old trying to get out of debt.
And guess what? That 60-year-old on average is living paycheck to paycheck too, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So they might be making $500,000 a year, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly.
That's how crazy it is these days.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I will say. So you talk about communication. So if you're married, you go through this process with your spouse.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you about that
I'll share it. And so I always listen. We listen to the Dave Ramsey show a lot. My son knows his voice.
Really?
Yeah, it's always on in the background at home, and it's we don't always listen to it. We're doing other stuff, but so anyway, I always hear people say that my spouse isn't on board. How do I get my spouse on board? I did not have my spouse on board to begin with. It was because of a mistake I was making. So as I mentioned, I'm highly analytical. I love numbers. So I'd go to Lois and I'd say, hey, here's what I think we should do. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's what the numbers project out to. Here's what we think we would have at 60 years old. And she'd be like, okay, great.
No emotion.
It didn't do anything for her because I was speaking the wrong language to my spouse. And so when I figured that out after some time, I just would talk her language, and I would say, well, Lois, if we didn't have any debt,
We could.
what would that look like for us? And so you paint a different picture. And so I think the error that a lot of spouses make is they try and speak their language to their spouse when your spouse actually talks in a different language. You need to find that language and speak to them.
Amen.
So that was my biggest
That's good.
error.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is life like now for the Depiesse family
Yeah.
without any debt?
Well, honestly, I don't know that it's sunk in.
Really cool.
we do a budget, and
No mortgage. You're just investing like crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool. So when I look at our budget, and here's something that I don't mean this to be, I'm not trying to brag, but I want to share it because I think this is really cool. I look at our budget, our biggest quote unquote expense is our charitable giving and our tithe. And that's what it allows you to do.
True.
And so, I
Goes
just,
right back to what you said at the beginning. Though.
yeah, it's so cool. All it does is it frees up money so you can make different decisions.
Live like no one else.
Yeah. So you have choice. And that's what it ultimately gives you is choice.
Can I imagine that the game evolved, and so you get to a certain point where the light is beginning to show at the end of the tunnel, and you say to yourself, I don't know that is anymore my end game.
Yeah.
Now the end game changes to, okay, now when I get to that light and I know how to get there, we're going to use these same, our routines to now make charitable giving our greatest expense.
Is life more fun now that you're out of debt?
There's certainly less stress. We don't have that stress of we don't owe anything to anyone, and so I think that's so cool. It gives you choice, gives you flexibility, gives you options, but you have to have another goal. There has to be something else you're working towards. So when I finished the Ironman, it was like, oh, now what?
Yeah.
And so you train. I trained for a year. And I ran the race. It was almost 14 hours.
That's crazy, by the way.
The finish line was 40-some seconds. I got on video. It was super cool. But it ended. It was done. And it's the same thing. Paid off our mortgage. What's next? We have to have something that we're continuously pulled towards in the future that gives us inspiration. So, yeah, it's legacy for us. It's a 10-year plan and vision that we have. And it's all based around legacy.
Do you have anything like a retirement type goal? You probably could retire today. I mean,
the original, and I'll give you some personal details, but the original 10-year plan, this is just phase one, was to be completely debt free. But we wanted to get to a point in our mid 40s where we could retire if we wanted to retire. I won't because
Kyle, can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm serious. Repeat that really quick.
I wanted to get to a point where we could retire if we wanted to retire.
In our mid 40s.
In our mid 40s, but we won't because I love what I do and I want to.
The game has evolved.
Yeah, and so, but from a standpoint of financially, we could if we wanted to, and so we won't. But that flexibility
just to have that option
is it's so powerful.
So what is this? So what secret potion did you use that you're not telling us about?
Essential oils.
Right, exactly. No, but I
is Lois essential oils? Okay.
But I say that half joking because I want to refocus.
There's no secret.
It's looking at a percentage of what you're earning is what you can spend.
Yeah.
Delay gratification.
Yeah. And if you do that, like Kyle did, he said, I'm in a financial position if I chose to retire in my mid 40s. So that is attainable to everybody listening.
It's almost embarrassing sitting here and you guys are asking me because we didn't do anything fancy, nothing sophisticated, nothing.
Do you have haters out there? Not haters, but pardon me for that term, but maybe, right?
Criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we posted on Instagram, Dave Ramsey, his social media account, actually reposted it, and
that's cool.
I was shocked the amount of people that threw hate at it and were either envious or it's not possible. They must have done this. They must be a doctor. They must be
inherited from their rich uncle.
It's like how do I think when you're faced with something like that as a human being and human tendency is you can either support that person or you can tear them down to make you feel better.
That's
about
what
yourself.
people do,
and
right?
So many people do the latter, and so we did get criticism. But the cool part, and the reason why I do this and I want to do more of these things and share, is that people were inspired. And if you can share this information and people take it, grab onto it, and then they run with it, that's how you create change. And even the same thing as a teacher, there were some students, not the majority, but some that took it. And they're going through school debt free. And it's just like that's how you make change. So, but it's interesting is the same message that I can communicate could be viewed as to you as hate, could be viewed to you as inspiration. It's the same message for me.
Yep.
So
exactly, and quite frankly, whatever gets your motor going. I would imagine most people, if you can inspire through hate, I think you sign your name and say you can hate me if it inspires you.
I'm okay with
use
it.
me as your bad guy, you know what I mean, type of thing.
Sometimes that works.
Exactly.
Be a little controversial. There's no controversy there, but even Dave Ramsey has haters.
Yes.
Look at his mansion.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? He's changed millions of people's lives and family trees. So
Herb Brooks,
he's done
to
some
beat
good things.
The Russians in 1980. He used himself as a common enemy. He said, I need these people to come together because he picked people that had internal beefs throughout their college days, and he said they need to hate somebody more than they hate each other.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to work them until they hate me so bad they will do anything to just get we're going to win it all just to get to that dude.
Top 5
That's
movie
cool.
right there too. That's a great movie.
That and Top Gun.
Yeah.
That and Top Gun.
1 and 2 maybe.
Point Break. That's
also
one of mine.
fantastic. Yeah. I got a theme here in the 80s.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh man,
Anything
it's
you
such
wanna
a
leave
great.
us with,
Yeah,
Kyle?
no doubt.
Oh, yeah. So one more point I think is really important. And I see a lot of people going through the debt-free process, and they focus so much on how do I cut expenses. But let me challenge people to think this way. What's more impactful, cutting your expenses in half or doubling your income? And it's important to play both offense and defense, but you've got to play strong offense if you really want to make a change in a quick amount of time. And so I think the question people should ask is, how can I double my income in 5 years? Is it education? Is it mentors? Probably all the above. Is it a career change? I don't know what it is.
Right.
But
Self-improvement.
every person's different, but it's self-improvement, it's personal growth.
And if I want to piggyback off of that, because I believe in that, and I think that is true. As somebody, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think I've changed my path in life. There was a time I would reject that idea. And I want people to understand it is a mindset that can be learned and taught.
Yep.
That is a true statement, what you just said. And if you hear that and you reject that idea, understand that you have work to do internally. There is, and once you get to that point, then finding that money, it
Oh
just
my
becomes
God.
easier. And I don't know how else to say it. I know it sounds funky, but when you've been in a certain spot and you've made those changes, it is so true. The mindset, the going uphill versus downhill. Do I cut dollars or do I earn more money? And if you're running uphill, you're probably thinking, let's earn more money. If your choice is to run downhill, you're probably thinking, where can I cut? And it is okay. It's an exposure issue more than likely. It's an education issue more than likely, but it can be changed. And so
I think so too.
If you're hearing that, it's okay. Be patient. Begin that work here. And you'll shock yourself at how
it takes time.
It does. It takes time. But when you
We live in the greatest country in the world, greatest time in history, where anybody can go direct to the public and make money.
everything's at your fingertips with the technology we have and all sorts of stuff and people willing to help. So
Absolutely.
cool.
Once again, Kyle Depiesse, reach out to him, Google him, find him on social media. He's a financial planner. It was awesome today. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations on your story.
Thank you.
God bless. So,
appreciate it.
Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll check in next week and go from there.
Let's do Harlem shit.